Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MMT Mondays. As the nation begins to reopen for better or for worse, it's highly likely that you've seen a sign at many fast food restaurants saying, due to our lack of staff, our in-house will be closed until further notice. Or maybe another sign saying, we're short-staffed, so please be patient with the staff that did show up. So over the past few weeks, several national and local news outlets have reported stories about businesses unable to reopen their doors due to the lack of job applicants. A Wall Street Journal report found that one of the reasons those surveyed gave for not returning to work was they were getting more money from unemployment programs. They also mentioned fear of contracting COVID and lack of childcare. Now, this is especially alarming for a society that prides itself on the belief of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and an honest day's wage. Though this platitude is often repeated, the truth is that America was built on exploitation. The country we know was made possible by the enslavement of Africans, seizure of land of native peoples, and a capitalist system that forces people into working long hours for low pay to provide for basic needs like food and shelter. It isn't that people are refusing to work because of unemployment benefits and federal assistance, but that wages are so low that people are getting more money from the government. If you're expecting people to willingly opt into being exploited for such pathetic wages, then you are clearly mistaken about what people in this country truly want. In a push to get capitalism back to normal, the country's elite are in a propaganda war to let us know to not get things twisted. America is very much still pulling oneself up by their bootstraps and corporate socialism for the wealthy. Republican lawmakers claimed that the extra $300 in temporary weekly unemployment aid is making people not want to work. President Biden responded that we're going to make it clear that anyone collecting unemployment who is offered a suitable job must take the job or lose their unemployment benefits.
We're going to make it clear that anyone collecting unemployment who is offered a suitable job must take the job or lose their unemployment benefits. There are a few COVID-19 related exceptions, so that people aren't forced to choose between their basic safety and a paycheck. But otherwise, that's the law. I know there's been a lot of discussion since Friday's report, that people are being paid to stay home rather than go to work. Well, we don't see much evidence of that. I think the people who claim Americans won't work, even if they find a good and fair opportunity, underestimate the American people. So we'll insist that the law is followed with respect to benefits, but we're not going to turn our backs on our fellow Americans. 22 million people lost their jobs in this pandemic through no fault of their own. They lost their jobs to a virus and to a government that bungled its response to the crisis.
And I agree that 22 million people lost their jobs due to no fault of their own, and that the government completely crapped the bed when it came to responding. It's almost like during the middle of a pandemic, we should have some kind of, guaranteed access to health care and some sort of job guarantee. Crazy concept, I know, right? Crazy. But to make matters even worse, 15 states have decided to end accepting federal unemployment benefits in June instead of September. According to the following CBS News interview, states are ending participation in the program due to workforce shortages in order to force those unemployed in their state to go back to work. Let's be perfectly clear, though. People are not going back because they are still worried about the health concerns regarding the ongoing coronavirus. With many states reopening completely and not even 50% of the nation fully vaccinated, we are seeing workers standing up and asserting their right to a safe work environment and higher pay. Even more fascinating is that recent studies concluded that when given unemployment benefits, people will spend more time working harder to find a job. I don't know, it's almost like if their basic needs are taken care of, then they're able to spend more time finding a quality job that they will actually stay and feel fulfilled in. Crazy. The host's utter shock at this answer is just priceless to see. Make sure to check it out.
A growing number of Republican-led states will be ending increased unemployment benefits. At least 11 states say they will be opting out of the federal program. The move would cut off $300 weekly unemployment benefits by the end of June. That aid was initially extended through early September. The news follows Friday's jobs report, which showed the U.S. economy added far fewer jobs than expected last month. But President Biden says government benefits aren't what's keeping people out of work. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News reporter Sarah Ewald-Weiss. Sarah, what have the governors of these states said about why they're leaving the program?
Right. So some of these different governors have been talking about workforce shortages in their states. They talk about how the economy is opening up and they're open for business, but they cannot find workers. And so they're saying that these increased unemployment benefits are keeping folks at home and from searching for jobs, and therefore they need to end them. Many governors are talking about doing this in mid-June, some in early July. One of the governors just on Wednesday who said he was ending the program in Wyoming said it's un-American to pay American workers not to work, and that was a part of the reason. They're also obviously, as you mentioned, citing the jobs report on Friday, which was a big disappointment. There are a growing number of job postings. We saw a record number in March, an increase in April, and yet they're still unable to fill some of those jobs. So they're hoping that this serves as an incentive to get folks back into the job market.
Yes, Sarah, it certainly has become a political argument between right and left. So what's the reality of the situation? How big of an impact do unemployment benefits actually have on labor shortages?
Well, I think if you're going to go out and ask folks about why they're not going back to work, you will find some people who say the increased benefits are a reason. But let's be very clear, that is not one of the major reasons here driving people to stay out of the workforce right now. I spoke to one restaurant owner just today who is having a hard time finding workers. And she told me that when she tries to get employees, one of the things that is still a serious concern for folks in these jobs is the health concerns because of the coronavirus. It is not gone. And so they voice those concerns when they're speaking to her. And, you know, restaurants are one of the businesses where there are a lot of openings and they're increasing openings. And so that is one problem. Another issue that we are seeing is the issue of childcare. There are a number of childcare workers who have not gone back to work. There are not the jobs to watch these children. And so parents are having trouble going back to work as well. There's also the education for school-age children. Some kids are back in classrooms, but some of them are not back in classrooms full-time. Some of them are distance learning through the end of the school year. So that is another additional layer to this challenge. I will say there have been a number of studies that have actually looked at the impact of increased unemployment benefits specifically on the workers and whether they go searching for jobs. And what those studies have actually found is that increased benefits serve as an incentive for some of these unemployed workers to work harder to find jobs. And when they don't have the unemployment benefits, that actually is what happens is they end up not working as hard to find those jobs. So that's really the exact opposite reaction to what some of these governors, as they claim, will happen when they end these benefits for workers.
Sorry, Sarah, I'm not sure I fully understood that study. It said that when there were no unemployment benefits, when there were unemployment benefits, people worked harder for a job. Why would that be?
I think it serves as an incentive. Folks, they are getting this money, but they're definitely, the pressure is on to return to the workforce. And when there aren't the jobs, they actually get, it serves as it's more disappointing, it's more of a struggle, and there's more stress involved. And that is why they're not working as hard to find those jobs. And that was a study that looked at before the pandemic, but it was looking at on the range of years and what happened with increased benefits versus not having those benefits available to folks when they become unemployed and how they interact once they receive them.
Well, Sarah, what does this move mean for people who are self-employed or gig workers and are receiving pandemic unemployment assistance?
Right. So what happens is different program for unemployment benefits for gig workers, for self-employed workers, was actually created in response to the pandemic. These are folks who were not initially able to receive traditional benefits, so they created another program. This program, when these governors end these unemployment, these federal benefits, will also end, and those workers will not have those benefits. One of the things that we have seen is a number of groups have decried the move by governors to end these programs. There are millions of people still on these programs who are self-employed, who are gig workers, who are receiving these benefits. And what happens is they'll lose them. There is some questions from these groups asking whether the Labor Department can take some kind of initiative to work around these governors, but that is really unclear at this time. So right now it looks like they will be losing out when these programs end.
This next video takes a closer look at the unimaginable decisions that families are having to face about whether or not to return to work. Laurin Scarpelli and her husband live in Arizona and lost their jobs last year in order to stay home with their at-risk children. But now they face serious financial issues due to the numerous state governments rejecting unemployment benefits in an effort to force people to go back to work. Sadly, this is just one example that millions of families are going to have to face this summer.
Just having to go outside and come back in, I'm already afraid that I'm bringing that in and could kill my children. You know, people like me and my family, we have to be safe. And our safety is our home. My children do both have cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic degenerative disease, a lot of the time terminal. It does primarily affect the respiratory system. So a normal person, when you breathe in and get a cold, you can cough and get all those germs out. Somebody that has cystic fibrosis breathes that in and it sticks into their lungs and it kills their lungs. Getting this could, highly potentially be fatal for people with respiratory disease, especially those that have cystic fibrosis and are struggling to begin with. So it's very scary. Had to make a choice of remaining at work or staying home and keeping our children safe. So we both went out on leave. We were asked to give a return to work date and we could not, and we were both terminated, both of our jobs. We both lost our jobs. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so it paid for my medical supplies. Both of my kids have different diets and we have to accommodate them. So, and that is not cheap. So it paid for all of their food, electricity bill, gas bill, water bill, phone bill, plus the rent, food. That was it. It just about made us stay afloat. We would not be able to survive, period. We won't be able to afford food, rent, all of our utilities. We'll be destitute after the first month. For safety reasons, we can't go back to work. And if we lose our home and our only option would be just say a shelter, how safe is that for me or my children having high risk diseases? I can't see the positivity in their decisions of taking all of these different things away, different parts of this away and changing it around and giving people less, how they see the positivity. It's very scary because in another month, there's not going to be a place for me or Doug or my children to be. And I don't know what we're going to do. And I wish we would have stronger leadership because I feel like that is lacking 100%.
Next, we see Fox Business's Stuart Varney blaming workers for the high unemployment and stating that measures should be taken to force them back into work, all in the name of helping businesses.
The jobs report, 266,000 new jobs in April. That was a huge miss. The analysts were predicting over 1 million new jobs. Labour Secretary Marty Walsh joins us now. Mr. Secretary, first of all, thank you very much for being with us on Fox Business this morning. We do appreciate it, sir. Can you explain to our viewers this incredible miss? It wasn't 1 million, it was 266,000. Can you explain it?
Well, first of all, I didn't predict 1 million jobs, which I think I'm grateful for that. Under normal circumstances, 266,000 jobs added to our economy would be a great number. Unfortunately, we're not living in normal times. When you look at where we're headed in this country, we're headed in the right direction. The last 3 months, if you average the last 3 months, we've added 500,000 jobs per month, over 1.5 million jobs added in our economy the last 3 months, compared to the previous 3 where we added about 60,000 per month. But we still have a ways to go. There's no question about it. The numbers today show that. There were some bright sides in this report as well. It showed that more people looked for work in the month of April than the previous months. And we saw the area of hospitality, which has been hit really hard during the pandemic. Hospitality and leisure, which includes restaurants, have the biggest gain. So there's some real bright spots as we move forward here.
If people are staying home because they're making more money by staying at home, perhaps you might want to consider not paying them these emergency payments. If they're staying home because the parents have to take care of the kids because the schools are closed, maybe start to open up the schools. If employers are unwilling to bring people back because of liability, maybe we should do something about liability. What do you say, Mr. Secretary?
Well, I don't agree with the first any of those points. I think that people aren't coming back to work because their job isn't there. It has nothing to do, in my opinion, or very little to do with unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance.
There are 7 million jobs going to begging. Mr. Secretary, there are 7 million, almost 7 million, unfilled jobs in this country as we speak.
So I guess if I went with that assumption, I would assume that 9 million Americans have decided not to go to work because they're collecting unemployment insurance, which I don't think is the case. I think most people want to be back at work. They want to get their career. Unemployment insurance is a temporary fix. We did 2 plans here in this country. One was the CARES plan, back a few months ago when the pandemic first hit, and the rescue plan, which is more recently. We're still living in the midst of a pandemic. We do have issues around childcare in this country where childcare facilities still aren't open and there's not good, strong childcare available right now. President made a $30 billion investment in that about 3 weeks ago to get those facilities open. Many of our schools are open in this country. I think they're also actually open. Some are hybrid, some are in-person learning. And I think, again, the pandemic is very much with us. People are concerned about it. And on the liability front, we could talk for 2 hours about that, I suppose, on the liability side. But, you know, we're still dealing with a global pandemic. And, you know, your news here and the ones I've been on all day, you report worldwide news, and you go across this globe, and every country is still dealing in the midst of a pandemic.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is just calling to end the $300 weekly supplemental unemployment benefits to address not going back to work. They want to end those payments. Are they totally wrong?
No, listen, I think we'd love to see unemployment insurance not being used at all. I certainly would love to see that. I would love to get every American eligible to go to work that wants to go to work into a job today. I think what's happened is that the economy shut down quickly in March of last year, and we've been opening and reopening slowly. We've been dealing with the pandemic, and I still think, you know, in the coming months, we're going to see more and more Americans go back to work, and hopefully we're going to see our unemployment numbers continue to come down. And we also have to specifically look at certain industries like communities of color. The black unemployment rate is 9.7%. 2 million women have been pushed out of the workforce. Some did come back last month, but we still have lots of work to do in these different areas. And rather, we need to work with the Chamber of Commerce. I need to work with the Chamber of Commerce. We need to work with the Mass Roundtable. We need to work to make sure that we continue to push to get people back into the workforce and that jobs are available for people.
There is some speculation that there's something wrong with the numbers, the preparation of the numbers, to account for such a huge miss. Do you know anything about that at all?
No, I got briefed just like you do a little while ago. I got briefed about 45 minutes ago. So we looked at the numbers. We're looking in different areas, and I'm sure as the day unfolds, there'll be some clarity behind maybe what you're talking about. Some of the concern people have, and again, these numbers will be dissected for the rest of the day. So hopefully we'll be able to get a better understanding of what's really happening in across the different economic business areas.
Mr. Secretary, I just want to thank you very much for being on the program today. I understand this is a very big day. You're as busy as the day is long. We understand that, but thanks for being with us this morning. Marty Walsh, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Varney only serves to highlight the rage that workers have regarding the vast inequalities that exist regarding pay. Over the course of the pandemic, we've come to understand even more how important individual labor is required to keep life normal. The year would have looked a lot different without essential workers who were willing to risk their lives at hospitals, schools, grocery stores, and delivering packages. I do have to say, though, I agree with Varney on one thing. It is a travesty that there are 7 million unfulfilled jobs. I believe now more than ever would be a perfect time to institute a federal job guarantee. People will be able to go back to work with a federally guaranteed job, but also will have protection from being forced to survive off of poverty wages. In our final clip, Senator Bernie Sanders sums up the situation perfectly. The problem is not a labor shortage in this country. The problem is that in state after state, workers are being asked to work for starvation wages and get no benefits. If we provide the dignity of a well-paying job, then people will work.
A number of Republican senators have said they are discontinuing the $300 a week federal supplement to unemployment insurance because they say it's a disincentive to work. There are stories out there that businesses are having trouble hiring people, and if you take out this $300 a week, more people will, I suppose to be colloquial, get off their ass and go to work. It's fascinating to me, Senator, that's where we think. When we have problems to solve, we think we go after the people who are unemployed at the moment. That's where we think the golden pot of money is.
Well, Ali, as you may have seen, in those instances in Pennsylvania and elsewhere where employers have raised wages, you know what? They're no longer having a labor shortage. The problem is not a labor shortage. The problem is that all over this country, workers are being asked to work for starvation wages. Women often do not have the child care that they need. People are still worried about being exposed to COVID. But what we have got to do is say to workers, you want to go out and get a job, that's fine. We're going to pay you a living wage. And when we do that, guess what? There is no labor shortage. And what the Republicans are saying by trying to do away with this supplement on top of unemployment is we're going to starve you back to work. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be forced to go back to work. My view is pay people a living wage. They will work.
As you can see, despite how much the American mythology loves to make it seem like we should be thankful for businesses and the employment that they offer, those businesses need our labor in order to function. For decades, CEO salaries have increased while worker wages have remained stagnant. During the last year alone, corporate executives' multi-million-dollar salaries have ballooned while workers' pay has decreased. America's billionaires have added over $1 trillion to their wealth since the starting of the pandemic, all while the workers have bore the brunt while working for pennies. This is happening in an environment where the average cost of living is rising and the number of people experiencing homelessness and food security is on the rise. It seems clear that we are having the wrong conversation and that instead of trying to coerce people into taking low-paying jobs, we should recognize the harm our current economic system inflicts every single day. If you enjoyed this video, Make sure to check us out at realprogressives.org and subscribe to get notifications on new video streams in YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, and Rockfin. Thank you, and y'all have a great week.